just don't know what the
my feeling is probably better than worse.
But would be.
So see if you can re-say that.
Well, I'm thinking that because the light is, the pathway of direct light is being interrupted over and over to the brain. I'm wondering what actually happens in the brain on a cellular level. The neurons might be making different kinds of connections with their dendrites.
That's right.
That might have ramifications in some way or another.
That's right.
And so what are the possibilities for change,
Well, I think first the question has to be asked, and you came up with a question, and that's a good question because I think there's strong possibility there that is occurring. See, for instance, on a spiritual level, I've updated the hidden teaching philosophy known as the Yoga Karuta, updated by an Englishman who wrote The Hidden Teaching Beyond Yoga and the Wisdom of the Lower Self in the 1930s and 40s, and I've contemporized it for my own self. And in it is mentioned the fact that mind in itself tends to do exactly that. For instance, we think that life is continuous, but we know that when you flip through the pages of a picture that looks similar to each other, pretty soon you have a cartoon. And in the same way, life is really nothing but staccato movements, staccato images. That's right, and it's the mind that connects them together.
That's right, and the mind actually, to me, is something different than the brain.
That's right.
Than the brain affecting the mind.
The scientists and the medical people can dissect the brain, but nobody can dissect the mind.
That's right.
And the brain is dependent on the mind.
Does the mind belong to?
The mind does not belong to the brain belongs to the mind. And so we enter a realm beyond just medical, beyond just physical, and then you get into philosophical.
But even just with the merging of the vibration of the sound and the image created, just by the fact that a mind or a brain, whatever, that wouldn't normally have those two things go together, that can put those two together. I mean, it's got to have some pretty far-reaching possibilities.
I think it's another example. It's a demonstration that can happen. I mean, look how mind pieces everything together from a baby to perception to spatial and time constraints and concerns, so that you start to perceive your world, the more experience you have. Combined with how memory puts it all together and links it all.
Yeah, it's like something in me, whatever that means, seems like I'm the same person I was 40 years ago, but if I look for it, I don't know what it is, right? Except for an idea that there's something continuous. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there has to be something which links it all together, and that is the mind. But then we have different variations of supposed matter.
Well, yeah, it's linked to this thing we call a body and the sensation.
And interesting enough, if you look at all three levels of experience, from dream to deep dreamless slumber to wakeful life, and except for deep dreamless slumber, in dream and in wakeful life, you have a body that has senses. Even your dream body you perceive because of the five senses in your dream body. Sorry. And so, in all instances, it is the mind linking it all together. And then we have the different stratospheres of the microcosm, the macrocosm, the microcosm being what you see in a microscope, the macrocosm being the planets and the spheres, and here we are in between. So, there's no world too small, there's no world too great that can't be created and be mind perceived. And so I think on the level of basic anatomy and physiology that you're talking about concerning the dendrites and the nerves, and I think that a demonstration of the solar meditation bow I invented is an example of linking things together.
Well, I think that's why I'm so struck by it, because I've been interested in spirituality for a long time, and more recently, just in the last few years, in the body and in healing the body and assisting others with that.
Right.
and knowing that there's some kind of connection, like knowing it.
Yeah, yeah.
But not being able to articulate that or understand it.
And that's the key. That's the clue.
Wanting to strive towards it.
Right, right.
And I think this is all really cool because when you first came over here, I was thinking, I'm not into this. Like,
that's what,
right away.
That's most people's reactions at first.
Like,
that's right.
I was ready. I thought the eighth one in the world, great. I could dig it. Right? That's what I thought.
Yeah, so...
And I'm glad I said yes.
Yeah.
Because I was inclined to say no fucking way. I said yes.
And it's because of him having an open mind and then seeing his reaction. And so I see that a lot. But it's fascinating, I think, that you came up with the subject and the topic of that. Because I think that being as this can help blind people see if they can see a little light or shadow and help colorblind people, I have a feeling that it also can help people with other, perhaps, mental issues or something. Or even myself, I have a touch of autism, And so I think following those lines, that line of thinking that you suggested, I think that there is merit in that, and this could be an example of that taking place, similar to how the mind works in linking things together.
However, and perhaps though, like with a history, I like the way you asked about epilepsy and stuff. If people have a history of certain kinds of trauma,
there you go. Post-traumatic stress disorder, for example.
That it could be helpful, but it could also have people perhaps go back into that whole stress response.
Whatever the case, it's interesting the fact that it takes you to a mental level in which it's completely different from our mundane outside world.
Well, yeah. I mean, my experience right here and now is from a pretty narrow, focusing just on one thing, which wasn't particularly pleasant. And it's sort of like I've gone from this.
You broaden your horizon. Yeah.
Me too. I'm curious. It seems to me, I bet you've been doing this for a while. And have you ever had any really interesting experiences, like from someone from doing that to them?
Oh, almost all the time. Every time I do it, people basically have cosmic, blissful experiences of awe and wonderment over it all. Some people can be very calm and in their center and almost say nothing, and yet they're experiencing so much. And basically, I view it as being kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where so much is coming at you, in that psychedelic moment, and it boggles the mind, and you're almost overwhelmed.
Have you ever done it with people for longer than that period of time? I'm just wondering.
I think it can
like
be,
a meditation can go deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm just wondering what would happen if somebody did, if we had that for half an hour or something.
Yeah, I think it would be very good. I do it as much as possible. I love it. And I find the more you do it, basically, I think it sows more higher consciousness seeds and the ability to actually heighten your awareness.
Because it takes my experience is it takes you away from...
That's right.
Just a really linear...
It can take you away from a really linear thing, or being stuck on something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leave the mundane.
Yeah.
Great.
Here.
Or the conditioned way
Thanks,
of being.
That's right. Well,
just don't know what the
my feeling is probably better than worse, but
would be.
So